Hello, Space Truckers, and welcome to another episode of Why You Should Play, a series where I shamelessly shill for my favorite RPGs. Today I'm going to talk about why you should play the Alien RPG, published by Freeleague Games. It's an amazing system for sci-fi horror, and it models stress and panic in a really fun, intense way. And it's Alien, so you can't really go wrong with Alien, except Alien 3. So, what's Alien RPG about, according to the publisher? Let's see what they have to say. It's a universe of body horror and corporate brinkmanship where synthetic people play God while space truckers and marines serve to host newborn ghoulish creatures. It's a harsh and unforgiving universe, and you are nothing if not expendable. Stay alive if you can. So right off the bat here, we can see that this game is not just going to be focusing on the iconic Xenomorphs, but also the corporate intrigue that serves as the background plot to pretty much all of the Alien movies, but especially the first two, which really focus on just how far Weyland-Yutani will go for a profit. But the Alien RPG is split up into two different types of play. You have the cinematic play, which is mostly done through their prepackaged adventures and stuff. It's a one-shot or a few sessions, but it has a set endpoint, and it really emphasizes the player versus player conflict and an overall story. And then you also have the campaign play mode, which is more like your traditional RPG with reoccurring characters and interconnected scenarios that happen across several different sessions. So I haven't really had much experience with cinematic play. I haven't run any of the pre-written ones, so I'm going to be talking about campaign play, which is just serviceable enough. So the core mechanic of Alien is the classic Free League Year Zero system, with there's a few twists. You have the attribute skill pairs, and then you roll a number of d6s equal to the total of those two stats. And you're looking to get at least 1 6. If you get just 1, that means that you succeed. And then if you get more than 1 6, it means that you succeed more, and you can perform stunts, which I have examples of on the screen here, that are specific to the situation, or often they're tied to the skill that you're using. And this system is pretty simple, and it works pretty well in play. You don't really want a lot of system in a horror game, because it gets in the way and ruins the tension when you're just crunching numbers all the time. So I find that just having you roll a certain number of dice and you're looking for that 6, it really helps with the tension and everything. But there's another layer to this mechanic that really elevates the system to be perfect for horror, and that is stress. So you gain stress when these things happen. When you suffer damage, you sleep without food or water, you fire a gun on full auto. So if you're not being disciplined with it and you're just going to let it loose, you'll gain stress from that. And my favorite one is when a scientist fails to analyze something. It really emulates that situation where a bunch of people are gathered around the scientist as he's picking over the corpse of a face hugger or something, and they're like, "Oh, what is it, Doc?" And he says, "Oh, I have no idea what's going on," and everybody freaks out because, he's the guy that's supposed to know stuff. It's going to be pretty stressful when the guy that's supposed to know stuff doesn't know stuff. And then another one, which is a classic of the Alien movies, is if a crew member is revealed to be synthetic, like Bishop in Aliens or Ash in Alien. People freak out, and it contributes towards your stress when you find out that somebody on your crew that you've known and trusted over maybe even years isn't actually a real person. And if a crew member attacks you, that also increases your stress. And then the GM can also, which is the game mother in this instance, I really like that rather than game master, game mother, really plays with the whole themes of Alien and everything. But the game mother can determine other things that can cause stress. So seeing something horrifying, like a chest burster or something, could cause stress in somebody that sees it. Stuff like that. So stress comes with a few different mechanics attached to it. You can also use stress to push a roll. So you can re-roll a failed roll, but if you fail again, a second time after you re-roll it, the consequences are even worse than if you would have just let it fail the first time. That costs 1 stress. And your stress rating is added to your dice pool. So say you're at 3 stress, you normally would roll 5 dice, and you have 3 stress, you would roll 8 dice. However, you need to keep your your stress dice separate, like a different color or a different type of die or something, because if you roll a 1 on your stress die, then you have to roll on the panic table, which is this glorious table here that shows how you'll lose your mind under pressure. And so your stress dice can count normally towards successes and everything, but when you get a 1, this table comes into play. You also add you add modifiers to this and everything so that getting a 15 is possible. And what's really neat about this table is that it can cause a domino effect in the rest of your crew. So, for example, if you scream, if you get a result of a 12 and you scream, your stress level goes down because it's kind of cathartic for you. But everybody around you must also immediately panic, which means that they could start screaming, and then you could start screaming, and then basically your entire crew is just sitting around and screaming while a xenomorph rips everybody to shreds. And this is an amazing mechanic that I love, the panic roll, because it really reinforces the horror elements of the game without it being too punishing for the players, because stress makes you more likely to panic, but it also increases your chances of getting that sweet, sweet 6 on a die, the one that'll save your life, potentially. So taking on more stress does make it more likely to succeed, but it also makes it more likely for the stress to get to your head. And the tension of just taking a big bucket full of dice and dumping them on the table, hoping to get the right results, is perfect for maintaining the atmosphere of dread that the Alien franchise is known for. So characters are a bunch of different archetypes. Here's 3 of them, for example: the colonial marshal, the kid, and the medic. These are kind of like tropes or archetypes of the sci-fi genre. Some of them are specific to the Alien universe, like the colonial marine or something like that. But your archetype gives you your equipment, your skills, and your character's personal agenda, most importantly of all, because personal agendas are an essential element to a successful Alien campaign. So your crew has a unified goal, but each character also has their own objectives, which leads to the drama and inter-character tension, just like in the movies, where you have Burke in Aliens, who he wants to wipe out most of the aliens, but he also wants to take a few of them back so that he can sell them to the corporation. And once the characters find out, it's a huge beat and everything. And just having personal agendas works really well, especially in this system. And so your characters will have skills and everything, but you'll also have supply, which is very similar to the Black Hack by David Black's usage die, but it's in the form of a dice pool. So you have a number 1 through 6 of your supply, so this works for like oxygen, food, and water. And when you do something that would use up some of that, you roll a number of dice equal to your supply rating, and every 1 that you roll reduces your supply by 1. So this isn't really anything groundbreaking, but it is a really elegant solution that doesn't involve tracking pounds of food or hours of oxygen, so it does the job well enough. So now that we've got the core system and stuff out of the way, we can get to the fun stuff, and that's the xenomorphs. So the xenomorphs listed in the book are really deadly, as they should be, and here's how they work. So what separates them from just any other NPC is that they have a speed rating, which is how many turns in a round they can take. So for example, a xenomorph could have a speed rating of 2, which means that while each player character only gets 1 turn in initiative, the xenomorph would get 2. This solves, or at least it helps to address, a lot of the action economy problems that a lot of other RPGs have with solo monsters, where the gang of player characters can just kind of gang up on one monster and beat them into submission. That doesn't really work here, which, especially with combined with this next mechanic, which is that there is a table of actions that the xenomorph can take, and that is listed in the stat block for them. So this could range anything from the xenomorph just staring down a player character to straight up ripping their head off and instantly killing them. And the GM on the turn of the Xenomorph will roll on this table to see what it does. And I like this a lot because it doesn't force the GM to choose when to kill characters, because they can absolve the decision making to the dice. And this is pretty important in a game as deadly as the Alien RPG, because if the GM decides when all the characters die, or at least it looks like they decide when all the characters die, it makes them feel like they're out to get the players and that the game's not fair. And that's the last thing that you want when a game is as deadly as this. You want your death to feel more like up to random chance or as a consequence of your actions. You don't want it to feel like the GM is straight up targeting you in this instance and just basically sentencing you to death. And I think that this random way of generating their actions makes them feel more, one, alien, and two, makes it seem like it's more of their nature and not just you deciding what happens. Now, of course, you can decide what actions they take if you prefer that, but I really do like rolling on the table because then I can surprise myself as to what they do. And they have other different stats as well, like armor, which reduces the damage they take. This is really great against the space trucker like type of ship that you can run, where all they have is maybe like a flamethrower and a bolt gun. It makes the alien even deadlier because then some weapons, like a knife or something, don't do any damage against them, which is pretty accurate to the movies. You never really see a xenomorph getting stabbed to death, especially with the acid blood. So it helps make them more movie accurate and a lot deadlier. And there are tons of different xenomorphs from the different movies in here. You got facehuggers, chest bursters, even the neomorphs from the like Prometheus and stuff. And you have a bunch of different variants of the classic xenomorph. So you got a lot of them. There isn't anything original to the RPG in here, which is something that I would have liked to see. But they do keep a pretty good variety while staying within the current canon of Alien. So that's nice. And overall, I really like the way that xenomorphs are handled here. The only problem is that if you're doing a long-term campaign, you can't just use them as your main enemy and have them show up all the time, or else they get really stale and they're not really that scary anymore. So the key to a successful long-term Alien campaign is to focus as much on the corporate politics and interpersonal conflicts as you do the xenomorph. At least that's the approach that I took to it, and it just helps keep them fresh and actually scary when they do show up. And so another thing I wanted to talk about with the Alien RPG is just how good the book looks. Like, the art is incredible, and it really helps to set the atmosphere and the mood of the Alien franchise. It's just a beautiful book, and the binding is just really sturdy. It's just a solid feeling book, like all freeleague products, of course, but the art in this is just incredible. I love it. It's very pretty. And here's the character sheet as well, which is also really pretty as well. Kind of gives you that retro feel while also conveying all the information that it needs to in a really nice place. You got your check boxes for your stress level. I like the circular arrangement of the attributes and skills, showing you which ones they associate with. However, I do think they should have made it a little more clear that they are grouped in that way. It is kind of hard to understand if you're not perfectly familiar with the game system. So overall, does Alien RPG accomplish what it sets out to do? Emulate the franchise and the sci-fi horror genre? I would say yes. It emulates the sci-fi horror genre very well. It's up there with like Mothership by Tuesday Night Games as some of the best sci-fi horror out there that you can use. The stress mechanic paired with the panic table really makes every roll matter and reinforces and justifies the sometimes irrational actions that horror movie characters often do. The book design is solid, and the system really only goes into as much detail as it needs to get the job done. A thing about horror systems that can happen is they try to get too much crunch, and I think that the more that you focus on the rules of the game in a horror game, the less scary it gets. So I do like this minimalistic approach to the system, while stunts still help keep all the actions fresh and give you some cool options to do with your extra successes. And overall, I highly recommend the Alien RPG if you're a fan of the franchise or just science fiction horror in general. There are more mechanics that I didn't talk about today, like spaceships and synthetics and all sorts of other stuff, so you'll just have to go buy the book and see everything else that the system has to offer. So check out Alien RPG by Free League Publishing for your horror sci-fi fix, and I will see you all next time. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.